This is a continuation of the story of Fanxian from Danju village. In the last video the guy dies, and after he closes his eyes he opens them again. After he opens them he finds himself in a forest where he is guarded by a guy. After that he finds himself in a village where he spends his childhood and learns different abilities. But when the boy grows up, his father from the city invites him over to his place where his sister and half-brother are. They went to a restaurant where they got into a fight, and when they left, the king who provoked the fight was there. And that's where the fun begins. When Fanxian came out he thought official Guo Baokuan was here to beat him up, but it's not that simple. He began to worship Fanxian and said that he had realized everything and he just liked the feeling of power. He began to apologize and ask forgiveness for daring to be proud of his wealth and power. He said that all these years he could not find it in himself to get rid of this temptation. But Fanxian looked at him and realized he was a very good actor and should go to the theater. The boy told him what everyone has a difficulty in their heart, the little one under the Confucian garb, after which they left. They came to the market and suddenly his sister starts laughing. The boy did not understand why she was smiling and asked her what was wrong. Fanxue told him that she was amused by what he had just said, as it was quite mean. And she thought it was funny. The guy didn't understand what he had said or what she meant. But his half-brother replied that it was about a kid in Confucian garb. But they looked at him and remained silent. What my sister was really thinking about was his phrase, "You're so skinny. Aren't you afraid that one day you'll just be blown away by the wind from your fans? Or is that your way of expressing self-respect?" They provoked him and his reply was very restrained, and thus he did not offend anyone and was worthy of being called a talented student. Fanxian was embarrassed. He also told her not to even think about marrying someone like these guys. Fanxian then put them in a carriage and told them to go home and he would walk around and watch. His half-brother wanted very much to stay with his brother, but his sister took him with her. Fanxian thought he was having some trouble with him. He chose the restaurant and the time of our walk. He threw himself first into the fight. All this could have been a plan to expose his not-so-pretty character traits to the prince. His opinions could play a role in the succession of the Fan family business in the future. Suddenly some ninja appears. He tells Fang that he knows everything he's thinking about. But the ninja says he doesn't think his brother had anything to do with it. Fan says he thought so too, and he's hardly involved. He often gets into trouble when he leaves the mansion, so in Mrs. Lu's opinion, it is only natural that he would get into trouble if he was always around him. It is only natural that those he encounters will have a grudge against Fanxian. The ninja smiled and said that her plan was simple, but very effective. And said that he had figured it out. But there was something else that was still unclear. Madam thinks his son will look far more dignified than he is. Fanxian recognized him and asked if he had come here with new evidence in the case of his village. He was told there was no evidence. At this time, the prince's son Qing was sitting with his friends, drinking and eating. He said that the prince was a great lover of literature. But among his men there is not a single true talent. His comrade said that Guoquan is no good either. Because of his father's power, he befriended the prince, so he treats a member of the Fan family with such disdain. And this Fanxian is quite a class. He thought the news that such an amazing young man had come into their family would quickly fly around the capital. Fanxian at this time wanted to punch the guy as he didn't understand why he had come here. After all, he clearly had something to say. After which the lad took off his hat and got down on his knees. He said that the council had records of everything that was going on. And if you add them up for me, that would be very good. I will dedicate my life to serving you. Fan says it's too easy, there must be some kind of ruse. But the reason he got into this department was because he was enduring deprivation. He once taught them a lesson when he saw him bullying others. Their family then accused him of murdering an official of the imperial court, thereby bringing trouble upon his family. The prosecutor's office rescued him and his family. After this he was forced to work for them. After the mission to assassinate Fanxian failed, he returned and found out that his family was missing. He thought Fang's file would have a record of it all, and he had a pass to get his hands on that file. And it wouldn't be hard for him. The ninja said if he helped him, his life would be his own. Fan picked it up and agreed, saying he would arrange everything. So the guy went to the prosecutor's office. They allegedly saved his family, but really just used it as leverage. And besides, killing an official could be the prosecutor's job, too. It's a good plan for the guy who wanted him dead. So he walks into the prosecutor's office, and he's about to find out for himself what happened here. When he walked into the prosecutor's office, he saw a lot of people there, almost all looking at him very strongly. It was a bad sign. He stopped and put his hand on one of the workers' hands. He asked him why everyone was looking at him instead of taking care of business. He replied that if someone was caught unawares in a place where outsiders were not allowed, everyone would be looking at him. Fan asked him, "Isn't this a government office? Isn't it natural that from time to time there would be strangers here who had nothing to do with the place?" The employee started smiling and said that everything was going smoothly. "And is there anyone from the capital who would come willingly?" What he said sounded quite logical. Next, Fan took out his badge and showed it to the worker. He said he was on business and it was his first time here, so he did not know the ins and outs. He said he was a student of Phonejie. After he heard this, he moved a very long distance away. He said he subconsciously associated Mr. Fei with dangerous things like poisons, so quite a logical reaction. What he was saying was that Fei's timing wasn't right. And Mr. Fei is not there. But when Fan offered to take him to him, he said he had gone to the border to check and quickly fled. But the guy stopped him and said there was one more thing he could help him with. The guy took him to the archives and told him the number 543. The worker said that these were simple documents and were not confidential. He remembered he needed information about Tong Tzu, so he asked Fan what he needed the documents for. Fan smiled and jokingly said that he had killed the guy. The employee said that there are many chapters in this document. It would take time to find them all. He suggested that he find them himself and deliver them to his house tomorrow. Fan looked at him and realized he was not telling the truth. There were tens of thousands of flowers here. He remembered the serial number of his case, but couldn't find it. Since he was an official, he wanted to outsmart him. Fan agreed and said he thought he was just afraid to take responsibility and he would report it. He told him to bring the documents tomorrow and finally asked his name. He said he was Wang Qiniang. And so the boy came out of the prosecutor's office. The teacher wasn't in the capital. He thought of asking him to help him, but unfortunately he was out. So the guy decided to make an early appointment with his fiancée to find out about her family's other ailments. Now all he had to do was wait. There really were a lot of people there. No wonder ordinary citizens avoided the prosecutor's office. When the boy came out, he saw that his mother's name was carved on the wall. He decided to look at this wall and at who was written on it. Even though Madame Yi's family was one of the richest at the time, she was not able to enjoy the wealth. The lad moved on. Fan Xian walked down the street and thought about his life. Uncle Dima said that 10 years ago all the enemies of the Yi family had been killed in the turmoil. But still their name is still considered taboo. The strange death of the boy's mother must after all have something to do with the approach of the prince. They engraved her name so openly on the wall. It was somehow even too bold. The boy thought and seemed to hover in his thoughts. He didn't even realize how he ended up near some temple. He decided to go there and ask how he could get back to the house of the Fan family. When he came in, the caretaker met him. He told him to go away as the temple was eating meat so that he would not disturb people. The guy just wanted to ask for directions, and he was upset by the warden's aggressive attitude. Now he wanted to see what was out there, but when the caretaker realized that he had started walking, he decided to kill him. He immediately started attacking the boy. He thought he could kill him very easily because he was so young, but that was not the case. And he couldn't kill him. He was surprised, because such great strength at such a young age was very rare. The caretaker asked which family he belonged to. But the boy didn't want to tell him what family he was from. According to the laws of the Qin dynasty, everyone has the right to pray in the temple. He didn't understand why he was stopped and not allowed in. The caretaker threw him out and said that there were noblemen in the temple. When they leave, you can pray too. And closed the door in front of the boy. The boy was lucky that he managed to press the enemy's secret point during the attack. Otherwise the consequences could have been more serious and he could have been killed. The boy thought that a very important person was praying in the temple. He could not beat him, so he decided not to get into trouble and asked for directions elsewhere and started to walk away. But suddenly the doors opened and the overseer said that the master told the boy to go into the side hall to pray bypassing the main hall. The boy went in and the caretaker told him again not to go into the main hall. The boy said he would not go and left, at this time in the main hall. The caretaker approached his king and said what he had ordered him to let the young man in. This king was curious as to what kind of young man could withstand his attack. His strength was indeed incredible. So the boy came to pray. While he was praying, he saw that the apple had fallen to the floor. It was because the table was shaking. It looked like someone was under the table and hiding. He did not understand who could be under the table and playing ghost with it. The guy took out a knife and decided to check who was hiding under the table. When he lifted the tablecloth he saw a girl sitting there eating chicken. When the boy looked at her he was embarrassed as she was very beautiful. They asked who you were at the same time. And the two were embarrassed. Suddenly someone said, "Madam, where did you come from?" The girl said she had to go and started to run away. The boy could not understand who she was and asked her if she would be here tomorrow. But the girl didn't say anything and left. The boy wondered if the girl had anything to do with those who were in the main hall. He decided to go out after her and ask her for her name. When he came out the girl was running and accidentally bumped into him. She just gave him the chicken leg she was eating, smiled and ran off. His uncle was already in town watching him. He was watching everything he did, he had been watching him from the beginning. Just watching. The guards, meanwhile, were following the observer. They were already dizzy, they did not understand who had done this to them. The watcher looked at them and did not understand why the guards who were supposed to be hiding outside the temple lost consciousness. And no one could see whose handiwork it was, to silently stun 8 guards of the 5th rank at the same time? He was very surprised. This was the work of one of the 4 great masters. After the young man arrived at the temple, the watcher found the guards in such a state. He suggested that this young man might be partly to blame. Suddenly the caretaker was called by the master. Said that if Chengping still refuses to return, send men after him. The caretaker said, well, watch or not, he did not like meeting this man face to face. He was better off bumping into some thug and fighting with him than meeting this Chengping. In the carriage the lady was asked why she was in such high spirits. She replied that every time she goes out with her uncle, she is very happy. Being able to go out is much better than staying in that gloomy room. Her healer said her illness was incurable. She was not allowed to go out, not allowed to catch a cold. If she also got caught stealing chicken legs she would surely get a scolding. She was not allowed to eat chicken feet and go out. Fan Xian came home, and now his family was having a family dinner. His whole family was sitting around the table. But Fan did not want to eat anything. His mother was saying that he was having a good day today and he was so exhausted that he had lost his appetite. All because he just got lost. They wanted to find him a guide so he wouldn't have to walk all the time and be so tired. After dinner, they wanted to play a game of mahjong together. Since he came back from his flight they had never been together as a family. And now this time would come. They all came together. Fan Xian was not very interested in playing, and he was already going crazy. His brother liked to play it very much, and even when he was watching he was very much interested. He asked his brother to let him try it too. So he said he was tired and decided to go to the pool. And he told his little brother to lend it to him instead. And the kid went. The game went on. But just a few minutes later, the younger brother stopped the game and said that he had won. He managed to put together a complete combination. Everyone was very much surprised. And when Fang Xian came in, he saw that his brother was sitting with a calculator, and there was a lot of money beside him. Apparently his brother was very good at games and calculations. Is this guy really that good? Did he really have the potential to be a player? This guy really liked numbers. Maybe that's his talent. My father got up and said that that was enough for the day. He started to leave, and my mother went with my father, leaving the 3 of them to rest. Fan Xian approached his younger brother. He said he was very good at numbers, and asked what he planned to do when he grew up. His brother replied that he wanted to become an official to make life better for ordinary people. But he knew that was a lie. So he told him not to lie as there is no one here except the 3 of them. Then he said he really wanted to do business and that he liked making money. His sister said going into business was not good and did not believe in her little brother. But Fan Xian told him that there are 1,000 roads to the front but only one leads to success. And he supported him to go into business. But his brother's support was not enough as his father had to agree. His brother offered him that he could go into business in secret and when he got the first results his father would see his talent, and maybe he would support him. He was pleased and said he needed the manuscript to begin with. Fan Xiong said if he wanted the manuscript he would have to write his plan on paper and show it to him. He agreed, took his money and ran off to prepare his plan. When he left, Fang Xiang was alone with his sister. She asked him why he was in such a good mood today. What had happened to him today? His brother went up to her and whispered in her ear that he had met a girl today who was eating a chicken leg. And he told the whole story that had happened to him about the girl who was under the table eating a chicken leg. The guy thought the fact that he was in the temple today was destiny, and he liked this girl very much. His sister replied that she was certainly glad that he had met the girl he liked, but that his future sister-in-law often coughed up blood, so she had to abstain from meat and butter. And since the girl he had just told him about was eating fried chicken, there was no way it could have been Miss Lin. After which his sister went to rest. The boy cried, as it seems Miss Lin is not his chicken leg girl. Anyway, he wanted to find this girl. And he wanted, even if she had a fiancé, to steal her away from him. Suddenly, the door opens and the brother appears and says he has completed his plan. And a big profit is guaranteed. Fan Xian took hold of his plan and told him to talk about it. And he began to tell it. By my reckoning the book consists of 10 volumes, each worth 8 silver, with a total of 68 volumes sold. There are about 640,000 people living in the capital. For 1,000 people we can easily sell 600 copies. After careful counting we get 35,840 silver. Fan Xian said what he said about selling. But to calculate the profit, he still needs to take costs into account. The younger brother replied that he had written it all down at the end. The rent of the kiosk might be quite expensive, but the place is great. With his father's name, you can get a good discount. What about the books? We'll commission them from a woodblock print shop, to save effort and money. It's the biggest private workshop in the capital. Thanks to their large volume and connections the cost won't be high, and they'll do everything quickly. It is important to keep in mind that no one covers their business. If anything goes wrong, we can just smear them. The elder brother said that even though we are the sole owner of the manuscript, how can we guarantee that other booksellers will not try to steal it after the book has gone on sale? The younger brother replied that if one of them dares to do such a thing, we will solve the problem directly with the help of the government. The older brother replied that the family does not run the government. There is no such thing as limiting book piracy in the law. But the younger brother replied that we use a different method. We just use connections to cut off their oxygen. Make it so they can't trade in the capital. Fan Xian was delighted that his brother had thought of everything from trading to government collusion with traders so quickly. There is definitely potential in him. Judging by the amount you quoted, each set would be worth more than 54 silver. Let the people in the capital not be poor, but I'm afraid few can afford that price. His younger brother punched him in the shoulder and said, what you still don't understand about the book you wrote. Now a huge number of women are waiting for the sequel to this book. This book will sell millions of sets. And then you will write more chapters. We will auction it off and sell it to the highest bidder. But he has already thought of everything and he needs a front man that the younger brother can control from behind the scenes. Fan Xian took his manuscript out of his pocket and gave it to his brother saying he would support him. However, relying on his father's name alone is not enough if he plans to pull this off. But the younger brother has thought of that too. The last option is a bribe, after which the older brother told him to take it and go do the plan. He took it and quickly went to his room. At this time Xian was thinking about how to find his princess. The capital is very big, it is equivalent to looking for a needle in a haystack. But we could try our luck again at the temple, and see if they are destined to meet her again. The next day the boy came and sat near the entrance to the temple. He had been sitting there for more than 5 hours. It was very lively there today, but for some reason the girl with the chicken leg was not there. He thought maybe she was already in the temple, so he decided to go and check. In the meantime, the caretaker watched him and finally waited for him. He knew that he would surely return. All this time he just stood outside the temple. The overseer thought it was his plan, and now he decided to catch him and ask him all the details. But just as he was passing the caretaker, he heard his uncle's voice telling him that it was dangerous and that he should go home quickly. As soon as the boy heard this, he started running away. The caretaker looked at him and did not understand why he had come here, but did not enter the temple. Something was clearly not right here, and he wanted to get to the bottom of it as soon as possible. But just as he wanted to go after him, the guy's uncle appears beside him. He did not understand how or when he managed to get close to him. He didn't even notice it. Such skills are characteristic only of great masters. He began to realize that today he was going to die, and since that could not be avoided, he decided to try to do something. He decided to use all his strength and power on this master, but when he did, he saw that the man had simply disappeared. As he was ready to die, he didn't restrain his powers, thus causing himself great harm. He with such ease, did not make a single sound. The difference in this man's strength was very great. He could have easily taken his life, but for some reason he did not. He did not understand why. This uncle appeared from above and said that he made Fan Xian spit blood and he made him. It's as simple as that. Fan Xian returned to his family's palace. As he stood there, he suddenly saw his father. His father told him to stop mindlessly wandering the streets, and told him what he knew about what had happened at the inn yesterday. What kind of conflict should be avoided? Don't be like your younger brother, he said. After which his father told Fan Xian to go with him, as he had something important to tell him. When he came to his office, his father said there were two things he wanted to talk to him about. First, the imperial exam next year. You have to start preparing in a couple of days. Secondly, tomorrow there will be a meeting of poets at the prince's mansion. You should prepare well and demonstrate your skills. The boy said he wasn't interested in any of this, but his father replied that he had to do it in order to win back his mother's family business and impress the prime minister and the elder princess. You know that your mother's business is in her hands now. Once the emperor, while drinking, mentioned that if the princess marries, the older princess will have to hand over power to the princess's future son-in-law. All this for the sake of avoiding influencing the business from outside. This is why the elder princess is extremely reluctant to give her daughter in marriage. In order to make this marriage easier, you must demonstrate your talents. But the boy answered what he wasn't interested in. And why should he understand all this involvement at all? His father replied that tomorrow's poetry night is on the lips of the whole capital city. Many talented students want to use their skills to advance their careers. It's not just the prime minister and the older princess, you might get noticed by the emperor himself. Maybe the girl from the 7 lings you're engaged to will also be there for once you're not interested in this great opportunity to become famous. When the boy heard what his father said about Miss Lin, he immediately wanted to agree. The father said he didn't think he cared. Haven't you met the girl who ate chicken feet that you want to marry? Dad knew all about the girl with the chicken legs. Must have put a tail on him. The boy told his father not to be so old-fashioned because they're going to see this girl sooner or later anyway. And he didn't think the other side would mind if he got 3 wives and 4 concubines. So he just wanted to marry them both. His father replied to let him go if he wanted to. He knows he has talent, and there's no need to hide the sharpness of his mind. The kid doesn't understand how the father knows his kid's got talent. He sent all his work in letters to his sister and only her, and he knew about the chicken leg girl, too. He really knew a lot about him. The boy was afraid that he might know even more than he should. The father closed the book and said he was tired and the boy could go. But his boy, he picked up the book and told him that he had to explain everything to him, and as he did so he said. His father asked him back. Can you explain to me the situation with your book and your brother? Whereupon the lad said we were even and left. He really does know everything. The boy should be more careful in the future. The next day the boy and his sister arrived at the event. It was very lively there. After all, it was the poetry competition, not some PAMM competition, that attracted most of the attention in the capital city. They were met at the entrance by the prince's son. He said he was very happy that they had come. He showed them into the hall. People along the way don't understand who the 2 men are and why the prince has personally come out to greet them. Rumor has it that the prince has a soft spot for Kanai, mistress of the Fang family. But that is a secret. And so the prince brought them into the room. But the men were all there. There was no way Pora could have expected that the boys and the girls would be seated separately, and the girls would also be closed off from us. I didn't understand how he could find Mistress Lin. This place is full of people who do nothing but brag about their work. He didn't understand how it could be called fun. So on the way he saw a familiar face. The two of them asked where you came from. They he met thought he had nothing but pomposity. He thought he wanted a beauty with the help of a prince. Fan replied that the prince had kindly invited him here, so he came not to offend him. And as for your poems, I'll leave that to you. Have fun, boys. And now it is time for the competition to begin. The prince's sister will explain the conditions for today's competition. Today you are free to write on a free theme. Each of you must compose a poem. Then give it back and we'll choose the top 3. Writing a poem is not the same as fighting with brute force. Men and women are equal in bed here. Wishing you good luck, said the princess. The men wanted to use different themes, such as the lake, gold, and landscapes. They looked at Fanxian and said, "Can a savage from the village really do that?" They laughed at him. He answered that he had no desire and gave way to them. A few days ago, Master Fan was talking about his own talent. Now was not the time to be embarrassed. It was not healthy for me to throw his old compliments around today. I do have taste, said the man opposite. They all laughed at him. They said this guy was the bastard son of the Fan family, who had recently come to the capital to get married. But other writers recognized him. His poems are very well known in their circles, as is his kindness. The character of this fellow is strikingly different. The prince looked at him and regretted how he was still able to remain calm in such a situation. Prince said, let's not make things difficult for each other. We are here for poetry. Since the brother is not in the mood, you may speak. The girls were looking at the other girls' poems at the same time. A girl came up to her sister and asked her why she did not want to look at the poems. And then the girl who was feuding with Fanxian's sister didn't understand why her brother's poem wasn't among all these verses. He didn't seem to get involved in it. It had to do with the conflict between him and the master. She dropped the other poems and said she wanted to look at his work specifically, and didn't understand what kind of a half-wit deprived her of that opportunity. It is now impossible to confirm not only his status but also his talent. Her sister said that she had the strangest language as usual. Where did that smell come from? Have you been to your sauce shop? She said, I don't care if she's friends with mistress, is her business. It's her business if she doesn't want to marry his brother. If you allow yourself to be rude to him, don't blame me later for neglecting our old friendship. The girl with the red hair laughed and said that she was nothing like her brother, and that she should stop wishful thinking. Her sister put her hand on her neck and said that the situation was very similar, as her brother and Madame Lin were orphans. Sister sat down on the floor and said, since we are here at a political meeting, let me take part in it. The girl picked up the brush and something happened that nobody could have expected. The girl started to write. And so I got my poem in the hands of the boys. They read it, saying that Miss Fan is worthy to call herself the most talented girl in the capital. Writing while landscapes and guilt, the emphasis on nature, is a true masterpiece. They didn't understand how a girl who used to not write so well now has written such an amazing poem. And so a girl comes to them saying that the lady said that this poem was written by her brother when he was 10 years old. And she just copied it. They didn't understand how it was possible or how it could have happened. They didn't understand how a child of 10 could write something like that. It was alarming, his ability. How did he manage it? This poem reveals the author's inability to do what he dreams of doing. Suddenly the head writer said he didn't believe it. Since he wrote it when he was so young. Now he must be still researching. Maybe write something right now, he told him. True, such a masterpiece is worthy of admiration. So why not write another poem to dispel the doubts of those present, said the prince. Fan said that he didn't write to order. Then he was told to choose a subject he could write about freely. Not for nothing did the boy read so much in his past life. He took his brush and began to write. Today he will write a poem. So he wrote a poem and it fell into the hands of a girl. They read it very well. They couldn't believe that the girl's brother had written it. They didn't understand why she hadn't told them earlier that her brother was so talented. When other writers read his text, The wind blows, the sky is high, a monkey cries, a bird flaps its wings and ruffles the sand. The cyst of the vast sky, falling down. The endlessness of the river carries it away. They read, and it was a very wonderful piece of writing. Sadness. Fury. No extremity. Infinity. Loneliness. Age. Sickness. Recording. The rhythm of this poem is perfectly up to standard, but it was a waste of time for the lad and he wrote it with great ease. He was only wondering if his sister had met his fiancée. Writers don't think there's another writer as capable as him. Even if he would no longer write anything, this poem would perpetuate his memory. And they didn't understand how he managed to write a masterpiece at a young age, drenched in grief. What a pity that he is gone. The prince wanted to ask him for some advice. At this time the sister was on her way home but almost forgot to forgive her brother. Suddenly a girl with red hair calls her. She wanted to talk to her and told her to stay.